Okay, welcome to movement analysis. Okay, today we're looking at planes of movement and axes of rotation. What you need to know about the planes of movement and the axes of rotation. Both of these are the part of kinematics, which is a subsection of biomechanics. Kinematics is what we use as a description of motion of body. So we're describing the movement that occurs, i.e. curvilinear motion is, imagine a runner running around a 200-meter bend. Okay, it's still linear, but it's also curving, so it's curvilinear motion, and we're describing the motion of the body. We're not talking about the kinetic forces such as gravity or center of mass or anything of that kind. Okay, so we're just talking about the description of motion. So we have three different planes of movement. Okay, like I was saying before, when describing motion, this is very important because for coaches and athletes around the world, it's very useful to have this universal language so it allows us to describe movements in more accurate ways and means. So different planes we have are the frontal, transverse, and sagittal planes. Students, you usually misspell this, but just double check your spelling. Okay, it's not always a massive impact within the exam. They don't take marks usually off for misspelling, but it's always good practice to spell it correctly with two T's. Okay. So the frontal plane, okay. If you wish to pause the video, you can have a look at that diagram, but we're going to move on. So hopefully this supplements your learning. It divides the body into anterior and posterior sections. Anterior is the front, posterior being the behind. Movement occurring in abduction and adduction. So if this gentleman here raises his arm to abduct away from the midline of the body along that plane and then adduct, that movement is occurring there. Imagine that person has been split in half, okay, straight down the shoulders by a sheet of glass, and that's the only way they can move was within that glass. Okay, that is how students find it easy to remember. Okay, so if you remember it that way, please do. And you can see it from front and back, hence frontal plane. So breaststroke, the leg action, if you line the body horizontally in the water as if you're swimming, okay, and you look at the breaststroke kick, that happens in the frontal plane. Likewise, star jump with the person standing up, okay, the legs and the arms abduct and adduct together along that plane. A transverse plane, it divides the body into superior and inferior sections, superior being the top, inferior being the bottom. Movement occurring is rotation. So if I had a bird's eye view over this athlete here, we'd see him rotating along that plane. Okay, so all the movements that would occur would be in that plane would be relevant to rotation. So transverse, top and bottom. Golf swing or bowling cricket, okay, we'd see that rotation happening as the bowler executes the final bowl from the hips rotate. Okay, that's along the transverse plane. Again with the golf swing, okay, they start side on, but as they finish they rotate into that forward facing movement. Sagittal plane, it divides the body into left and right, and therefore flexion extension can be seen, for example in the arms, bicep curl, and the legs sprinting. If you saw someone on a treadmill, it's much easier to see the entire movement from the side than it is from the front. Okay, for those of you who get misunderstand that, it's because you can see the extent to which how much flexion and extension is happening at the legs and arms from the side versus from the front. Okay, the quadriceps or the arms may distort the full picture or the angle at which you can see the limbs moving. Axes of rotation. Okay, axes is plural, by the way, if you didn't understand that. So an axis is a straight line at which the body rotates. So an axis, if we draw a line straight through a joint, okay, that is the point at which it would rotate. There are three different types, so sagittal, transverse, and longitudinal. Again, students, you may find it difficult between sagittal and transverse because they're the same names as the planes, but you need to ensure that you separate planes and axes. Okay, albeit they're complementary to each other with movement, but you need to understand the differences between them. So a sagittal axis is a line that passes from front to back. So imagine a javelin going straight through the belly button. They would only be allowed to rotate along that javelin, okay, along that axis. The center of mass is the point at which all your mass is the mean of your mass is distributed. Okay, so that is almost where your balance occurs, because we will come back to this at A level. Okay, and I'll have more time to explain. But the center of mass is the point at which everything's balanced. Okay, so if you're in space, okay, your center of mass usually is about the belly button, and it is on the Earth as well. But on Earth, obviously, we have gravity, so it might be a little lower towards the hips. Okay. So a gymnast performing a cartwheel. So if you've got that javelin which is going straight through your body, all you can do is rotate left and right. Okay. For those of you who are quite gory and like horror movies, for example, a zombie that's been impaled, okay, they can only move in certain ways. Shaun of the Dead, I know it may not be suitable for some, but okay, very old film, but it depicts what I'm trying to explain. Okay, sorry about the technical problems there. Transverse axis. Imagine I pass from left to right for the athlete's centre of mass. So here we're looking almost at like a table football player. All right, those of you who played that, we use the handles in order to rotate the wooden people in order to hit the ball into the goal. The idea is it allows you to rotate backwards and forwards, almost like a gymnast performing a somersault, okay, or a trampolinist doing a front flip, okay. So a forward somersault, sorry, more accurately speaking, okay. Longitudinal axis, an imaginary line that passes from top to bottom, hence the longest part of the body, the longest axis, okay. So you could have an athlete doing a pirouette, so an ice skater or a dancer doing a pirouette, okay, or you could have a discus thrower, all right. So they're rotating in that fashion. So the idea of planes and axes is to accurately describe movement. So, for example, if you have a frontal plane, sagittal axis, they might be doing something like a cartwheel, okay? And we'll look at more examples in just a moment. But if you want to pause this and make notes on the video itself, on these images, you're more than welcome to. If you want to screenshot and use these within your notes, print them off, please do. Okay, here's a way of remembering all of this. It does seem very daunting, okay? You must get on the plane before you arrive, okay? You might think I've absolutely lost my head. No, okay? You must always look at the plane of movement before the axis, okay? So, plane, we have a sagittal, frontal, transverse. And in red here, you've noticed I've put some words next to it and you think, what are they? But if you read it as sometimes, so sagittal, transverse, sometimes, fun starts too late, okay? That is an easier way in your mind to try and work out which plane and axis complement each other with movement. So sagittal and transverse plane and axis, a good small example is the front or forward somersault. Okay, so I was talking about on the trampoline. So sagittal sometimes, frontal somersault, fun starts, cartwheel. So frontal plane, okay, remember the very first chap who had the glass down him, okay. And the sagittal axis, it goes from front to back. We have the cartwheel, okay. Plane and axis for transverse and longitudinal is a pirouette. So you are twisting, you're rotating, so it's in the transverse plane, and you're using a longitudinal axis, pirouette. I hope you find this helpful with regards to the plane. Before you must get on the plane before you arrive, and you look at the plane first and then the axis, and this silly, to be fair, simple rhyme of sometimes fun starts too late in order to help you understand planes and axes with movement. I hope this helps. This is a little introduction to biomechanics. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Please like the video and subscribe. Good luck. Thank you.